Hi, happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Once Club Presents and In Conversation With. Today we have Lauren Currie joining us, OBE, who is here to give us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about what she does, how she got there. She champions confidence and really empowering women and confidence in general across personal and professional development. And we're really excited to sit down with Lauren because I think in a time like now, we need more sort of confidence warriors, if you will, and more people to really look out for those who to help us get out of our own way, if you will. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was looking back at the conversation we had last August and laughing at how sweaty and just melting I was, like hair all over the place, wet face, like so determined to still do this interview with you. Like, it's really hot.
I know, when we were actually having a summer, I forgot actually how unbearably hot it got actually last year, funny enough.
I'm glad I'm not sweaty today, and I'm fresh faced now in Sweden with much better seasons and weather.
So much has changed as well for you, like you said, last year you were sort of in London, now you're in Sweden. Like, it's such a different goes to show how much a year can change everything, right?
Totally. And for you too.
Well, exactly. Who would have thought I'm sort of 4 weeks away from having a baby? Who knew? So it's all change, absolutely. But one of the things, how we actually got in contact was a friend of mine was subscribed to your newsletter, and at that time you were looking to, you wanted your sort of members, your followers, to kind of share with you people who thought were great at sharing confidence, and that was kind of how I got into your newsletter and everything. And I was just really struck by this idea that this idea of confidence, so small but actually so important. How has that sort of become sort of like your niche focus and kind of, the main crux of what you talk about and how you empower women?
Yeah, so I think there's a long version, a short version, because it's been, so I started my first business in 2008, and I've been building various businesses around various different social problems since then. And, the red thread of social change, progression, justice, and design, because my background's in design. I was trained to be a product designer. My first business was a service design consultancy. And through that time, there was, a constant theme of me having to be visible, be the face of my business, having to talk on stage to evangelize and get people inspired to come and work with us, really out of necessity.
Yeah.
And kind of halfway through that journey, very naively starting to notice, why are these conferences and spaces dominated by a certain particular social group? Why are there so few women? Why are there so few Black women? Why are there so few disabled people? Why are there so few neurodiverse people? We see the same white, middle-aged, privately educated male taking up a lot of space in these different environments. And kind of alongside the businesses that I was running at the time, the kind of designer in me couldn't help but start to investigate that and explore it. And it kind of came to a head in 2016 when I spoke at a conference, and I was the only woman on the program, which of course now I would never do. But back then, I didn't really understand what intersectional feminism was. Definitely wasn't actively learning to be anti-racist. I was asking very naive questions, and through that journey realized that a huge answer to the questions I was asking is privilege and power. and intersectionality. And the more that you dig, the more I dug into that, and the more and more conversations I had with people, particularly women and those from marginalized communities, realizing that our understanding of confidence is so broken.
Yeah.
And society's perception and understanding of confidence is also broken, which means we end up where we are now, which is we live in a world where women don't, it's not that women don't lack, it's not that women lack confidence, it's that when women show confidence, we're punished because we don't fit the mold of confidence that society teaches us as the right one. Absolutely. And that right one is the one that fits the often masculine, white, sometimes American version of confidence. So, you know, over the years, working with hundreds and hundreds of women from lots of different walks of life, different geographies, different races, different parts of the world, different professional identities, and seeing there's so much commonality in how, when you grow up as a girl, how you are taught to think about your own confidence and also the confidence of other women and people who identify as women round about you. And that's why I've landed in this place where I talk about building a confidence revolution, because I really believe that confidence is the thing, it's the bridge between a thought and an action. And we see the symptoms and consequences of the vast inequalities everywhere we look right now. And I think a huge part of solving that is women knowing how to turn their ideas and thoughts into action, and knowing how to use the power that they've always already had. They've just been taught to minimize it, and they've been oppressed.
Absolutely. And I think what you're what strikes me there as well is that it's so true. There's this idea of kind of growing up with almost confidence being quite a dirty word, and kind of having to navigate within that, you know, with that point of view sometimes of, am I being confident and am I being arrogant? Yet, you know, the same is not necessarily always attached to, say, a male counterpart, for example. And I, you know, I've sort of mostly been within a luxury retail industry, and I find that I'm always struck by the idea that there's so many, and you know, to be fair, not just women, but there's so many great people who do great work, they work really hard, and they never ever sing their praises or talk about, you know, or really use their experience or sell themselves. And I'm just, you know, or they kind of sell themselves short, and it's a bizarre thing that you're kind of pushed into working really hard and doing the best you can and making all these achievements, and then actually you get the achievements, but then you're not supposed to talk about them to help yourself go any further. It doesn't really make sense. You're kind of always pushing against a glass ceiling, I suppose. So you mentioned that your background was originally in product design, and then you went on to actually win an OBE within services to design, but also diversity. I mean, how did that come about? It sounds it must have been very like, oh, this is crazy. Like, you know, how does that come out of the blue, or are you
yeah, totally out of the blue. And it's it's a funny thing that's, for me, is very nuanced. It's like holding the two ideas of, I fundamentally am against everything that the royal family stand for and always have been, but at the same time feel proud and inspired that my work and the kind of all the disciplines and different fields and teams and ideas that my work represent were acknowledged in that way. And, you know, I had to think really deeply about, do I want to say yes to this or not? And I think when you are me being me, it's like, I'm not, if I'd said no, nobody would have noticed. Like, it wouldn't have been in a newspaper and it wouldn't have got a million Instagram hits, because, you know, nobody knows who I am. So my reasoning and the kind of sense I made of it was, this will give me more power and influence to to do good work and to be in spaces where people like me are not normally invited
Yeah.
to be. And it so somebody, the way that it works is somebody nominates you,
Okay.
and then they get several letters of nomination. Now I know who nominated me, but it was somebody who knew me through Twitter. I've since built a relationship with her, but didn't really know her very well at the time. I don't know who wrote the letters of nomination. And then at the time of collecting the award, when I met Prince William, I was 8 months pregnant. So
Oh, wow.
that was fun, because I was like, definitely brought the average age down by about 25 years. And of course, walking around with a huge tummy was really fun. But I think it's one of these things where the most important part of all of it for me was the pride and the kind of impact that it had on my parents, like especially my dad. I think they've always been so supportive of my ambitions and my ideas and my work, but at the same time not really fully understanding what it is that I do and how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something like an OBE was something that my dad and, you know, his teammates at the local council where he works could like really understand what that was and the kind of prestige that came with that. And that was a really special thing for him. So really for me, it was a gift.
Oh, bless. It
him.
also allows some context. I think sometimes nowadays as well, when you are because, you know, we work on projects and we work on these different things, and they kind of tend to have kind of tentacles in different areas, if you will. There's a sense of lack of context sometimes. It's no longer that sort of, you know, 9 to 6, this is what I do, and here's the proof in the pudding. I suppose it really allows you to give them that sense of, you know, this is what I'm, you know, the pinnacle of, you know, this is what I'm at the center of, or this is what I'm trying to do. And like you said, allows for leverage now, I suppose, in terms of being able to kind of take your work and you know, take it further. I suppose. So with you you know, starting your first business in 2008 and then coming to UPFRONT, you know, what was the journey there like for you? And kind of I'd love for you, in your own words, just to kind of explain, you know, what UPFRONT is for our members and how it works.
Yeah, of course. So my first business was a design consultancy. It was very focused on Scotland, using design and creativity to make Scotland a better place. I ran that for 7 years and grew it to a medium-sized consultancy. And then I spent a year in private education with a it's a kind of alternative university called Hyper Island, which actually was founded in Sweden, which is how I got to know Sweden, through lecturing for that school. And then I joined their school in Manchester and designed a master's program in experience design. Then I spent some time working with a collaboration of 10 of the UK's biggest charities. So that was all about how can we design businesses that will change how charities raise money, because as we know, the business models that charities use aren't working anymore.
Yeah.
So the brief there was really fascinating. You know, we had people like Oxfam, British Heart Foundation, all the names you'd recognise were signed up and committed. And it was like, okay, we need to build a business that will bring in £250 million of profit every single year for the entire charity sector, which is just bonkers. Like when you map that out and think about what that needs to look like in terms of scale and revenue, it's wild, and in a great way. So I jumped at the chance to be part of it, and really quickly into that process realized actually designing the businesses, coming up with ideas, testing the prototypes and all that stuff was almost the easy bit. The hard work to be done in that environment was the cultural work around leadership and teamwork. And you had all these, even though they were all charities, all very different cultures, different relationships with innovation, different relationships with creativity.
Yeah.
And that was when my focus kind of started to shift away from designing products and services to designing cultures, organizations, ways of working, leadership. And at that time, I then went on maternity leave and had my baby boy, who's now 3.5. And when I was on maternity leave, I was invited to build the London office for a boutique consultancy in the US called Nobel. And they were all about this very thing. So how do we take design, organizational psychology, and apply it to teams and organizations to help them work better together, to help them build cultures that will produce brilliant work and happy people and all that good stuff, which is the opposite of what we see in most of the headlines, because most organizations get culture very wrong and sometimes in very tragic ways. So we worked with more corporate organizations like Warner Brothers, Spotify, Airbnb, and that was when I started to get really interested in leadership and team design and team dynamics. And then I met a chap based in Stockholm who had this idea for an app around leadership. And that was what I moved to Stockholm and worked with him for a year to build an app to teach people leadership skills, raise some money. So I spent last year doing that. That ended up, it didn't work out, it wasn't the right thing for me. We weren't able to raise money. But all the while, I've been running upfront workshops, building an upfront community. Last summer, we launched our online course, and it was only 3 months ago that I've been full-time upfront. So since 2016, it's been a side hustle. Now I'm full-time founder of Upfront, and we have 3 main things. So we have courses, online courses, and we call those courses bonds. So a bond is the collective noun for a group of women. And the first bond launched in August when you and I met last year. And the 4th bond just ended before summer, and we had 322 women from over 21 different countries join us. And the 5th bond launches in November. And essentially that is a 6-week online program where you spend lots of time with me, lots of time with each other to unlearn all of the unhelpful narratives, myths, stories that we've been taught to believe about confidence. And we relearn new ones through a lens of intersectionality, through a lens of race, privilege, power, all within the context of what does my confidence look like in a way that makes me feel good, and how do I bring other people with me as I do that. And for some women, that might be about a professional context, pitching to clients, speaking up in meetings. For someone else, it might be building up the confidence to challenge her kid's teacher, advocate for herself during labor, leaving her relationship she's not happy in anymore. It takes lots and lots of different shapes and sizes, and we really don't put any emphasis on professional identity. Everybody shows up as who they are. We have students, we have CEOs, we have people on benefits, we have people on maternity leave, we have team leaders, we have entrepreneurs, freelancers, whole big mixture. Really, I don't care what your job is, but we care what your values are, how you're going to learn how to show up for yourself and show up for others. So we have our courses, we have our community, which is called the Global Bond. I'm sure a bit like what you're building here at the Once Club, membership community, where we have guest speakers and lots of events and networking and deep relationship building. And then we have content. So we publish a weekly newsletter, and every day I show up on Instagram to give tips and insights around this idea of kind confidence, finding your own power.
I love it. And just from your demographic of the different types of members who join these types of bonds, it really just goes to show you that the vast all these bad habits, essentially, like you said, that we've all kind of learned over the years with this type of narrative and how it affects everyone. It's really nothing to do with academia or professionalism,
No.
Just like you said, it could be you mentioned a couple of things there with for example, like advocating for yourself during labor, or speaking to the teacher. These are real things that I know that I personally have had people in my life sort of say, that has been a problem for them to kind of feel that they can say what they need to say, or to kind of advocate for their child. And it's bizarre, because you never think of these things as being an issue, or you think, well, this person, you have an idea of accomplishment, and therefore you think that these are not issues. It hits everyone across all these different intersections of life. It's mine, it's really, really crazy. How do you tend to work with your members, for example, because it is so much, sometimes it is about leadership and teams and things like that, how do you get them to get to a point where they can sort of use that within a team effort? Because sometimes it's one thing to learn it for yourself, but then to impart that onto the next, to your peers or to your teams or what have you, to kind of get it to spread, because mindset is a big deal. And I think, I've managed, teams and big teams at that as well. And sometimes it's changing the mindset is probably the hardest part. So, is that something that you guys focus on as well?
Yeah, of course. And I agree, mindset is the hardest part, but also the part that we have control over, which is, the thing to keep focused on, is like, we can change these, thought patterns, these behaviors, these reactions. And how I approach it, my designer training and all the work I've ever done is like very biased towards action. So my style is very direct, no nonsense, no bullshit, no jargon, very actionable, applicable. What does this look like? And it's less about, go do this thing with your team, because of course some people won't have a team. Some people will just be a team of one.
Yeah.
Some people will have a huge team. I think the first phase of it is really living it out as you, and then the ripple effects happen naturally. Like, I can't tell you how many emails and messages I get from bosses, from colleagues, to say, she's done this course and she's different and it's amazing. And sometimes it's like, I can't quite pinpoint, it's not like a very specific tangible thing. It's the presence, conviction, articulation, like so much less worrying. I'd say, like, the amount of time we spend worrying what somebody else might think. I'm going to write this email, then I'm going to send it to 5 people, they're all going to write a draft, they're all going to tell me what we think. Like 10 WhatsApp groups later, still writing this one email. It's like so much time and energy of over analyzing, over questioning. All of that is rooted in not trusting ourselves. And ultimately that's what confidence is. I trust myself. What do I think of the speech I just gave? What do I think of the product that I just designed? And there's maybe 2 or 3 other people, maybe your partner, maybe your sister, maybe your flatmate, maybe your boss, who you also care what they think. Nobody else matters. But yet we spend so much time, and so many people actually live their whole life not showing up how they want to show up, for fear of what these nameless people might think. And really, the truth is, these people are too busy worrying what everybody thinks about them to be noticing, to be having strong opinions about us. So it's all of the work up front is rooted in the kind of neuroscience of really small changes that create new habits, and when they accumulate, it's a very tangible, noticeable difference. And that might be things around your language, it might be things around how you hold yourself, your relationship with your body, and it's definitely often a lot around mindset, like in particular our relationship with perfectionism, making mistakes, learning to love mistakes, learning to embrace, like, awkwardness is not fatal. Like, if I do this, if I'm going to show up today and do a thing over Zoom with somebody I don't know that well, it might feel awkward. And nobody will die. It'll feel less awkward next time. And I think when you do all that with a community of hundreds of different women, who some will be very different to you, some will be similar to you, but who are all on that same journey, the power of that collective support and encouragement is and often is transformational, because many women have never experienced genuine support and enthusiasm from other women. In fact, many women have had a lot of negative experiences with other women, especially through their teenage years or school years, where we're, because we're taught to pit ourselves against each other. We're taught there's not enough space for us all to win. Again, there's lots of stories that we are exposed to from a very young age that teach us that we can't trust each other, which ultimately is what keeps the status quo in place, because we've all seen what happens when women trust each other. We've seen political movements, laws being changed, incredible mountainous acts of creativity that happen when women truly trust each other and collaborate and work together.
So it's so true. It is this breeding ground of non-trust, and a lot of our members, fun enough, with being in personal shopping, it's exactly the same thing. You can always tell that there's always this slight competitive edge, and I've always been really perturbed with fashion in general, why that exists. And it's fascinating, really, actually, to kind of think about it, and then you start really looking into the psychology of it. You're like, why is that like that? And it's this real divide and conquer, and actually you see it with marginalized groups a lot. There is a sense of divide and conquer all the time, and that's why a lot less is being done. But when they come together, you see the unity and the progress and the achievements that can be made, and it always feels like, oh, so much wasted time has happened. When did you start your newsletter? Was this always something that preceded UPFRONT, or was it to kind of support after the fact?
That's a good question. So I have two newsletters. There's the UPFRONT newsletter, and I have a Lauren Currie newsletter. I started my Lauren Currie newsletter last March, I think, and mainly in response to two things: COVID and having a bit of a crisis around the tech giants of Instagram and Twitter, and how much they own our data and are a huge part of my business is my online community. And if I don't have a newsletter, if I don't have an email list, then I'm putting the richest asset in my business after myself in the hands of Mark Zuckerberg and all the other assholes. So didn't want to do that. So I thought I'll start a newsletter, and I kept it really simple, 10 links. Every week I send 10 links that I believe are worth sharing with you. And the next one goes out tomorrow morning, actually. So I was just looking at it before we came on here. So I've got 2,000 folks on that one. And the UPFRONT newsletter, I can't remember exactly when it started. I think maybe 2018. And it's been through a few different evolutions. Essentially, I was always doing it on the side of other jobs, as I said, so I kind of hired some folks to help me. And it's only really been recently that I've really taken the reins, and I write it all myself, and it goes out every week, and it's very focused on confidence, visibility, and power. So for folks who are curious about me, the bonds, the work that UPFRONT's doing, the newsletter's a really nice way to start getting a sense of what that is, and also there's just lots of takeaways. It's always very actionable as well, and I think we've got about 4,000 folks on that list.
I noticed that there's always this kind of like there's something to actually like click into and to look into. But it's very short and snappy, and so it doesn't tend to, because other newsletters I've experienced and things like that, they're very heavy, they're very cumbersome, and I think a lot of people, whereas you can sort of go on to yours and it's all very, like you said, it's very cohesive and super helpful. Actually, there's always a little tidbit.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's actually what a lot of people need. Something just very short and sweet, and it's there for you to kind of tap into if you want to. It's nothing too laborious or unobtainable, and I think it's actually really interesting that you sort of said that it was a way for you to kind of gain that control because we are, like you said, it is an online community now that we tend to be talking to, but there is also a lot of lack of control there. And that's definitely something that we also see with Once Club, you know, where you can sort of put out all the good vibes, but actually, what do you know about who you're interacting with or trying to interact with? It's super interesting. One thing I really want to ask as well, obviously red is a very big part of your theme, and I don't know, I've never asked you before, why red? Is it, you know, what came first? Was it sort of branding, or was it just your personal color? I'm very intrigued.
Oh, definitely was not branding. Like, honestly, it's hilarious how many people, I mean, so up until about a year ago, all my blogs and my online work was under the pseudonym Red Jotter, which, so jotter is like a Scottish word for these notebooks,
like a notebook, right?
Like this one. And it came about because I graduated from my undergrad, so I was like 21. I had my first job in Amsterdam for the summer to be a service designer. I was on my way to the airport, and I thought, I'm going to make a blog so I can keep a diary of what I'm working on, like literally just for me. And I remember I called my flatmate at the time and said, I'm like trying to register this WordPress thing. Should I call it Red Jotter or Red Pencil? Just because I liked red. So at that point, it was like, I mean, talking to a personal stylist community, like I knew it was like the color that suited me best. Got very light skin, very dark hair. Like if I ever wore red, people would be like, oh, it really suits you. And, you know, it made me feel good. So I just liked it. Usually we used to wear red nail varnish a lot, still do. So I'm like, red pencil, Red Jotter. My friend was like, red pencil, shit, call it Red Jotter. So Red Jotter was born, and really that was it. And I remember a couple of years later being at a networking event with somebody in my industry who, you know, I really admired and was much more senior than me. And he was saying to me, have you seen Red Jotter's stuff? And I was thinking, he doesn't know that that's me.
Oh, I love it.
And that was when I had this. And actually, I think it was driven by my relationship with my ex. Like I just split up and it was messy, and I was like shy and didn't want him to see that I put my face on the internet. You know, it was, I think it was, I was hiding for various personal, emotional reasons. So at that moment, I was like, right, I kind of need to put my name on it, make it really clear that this is me. And then it was only literally maybe a year and a half ago, I changed Red Jotter to Lauren Currie. So now online, it's just my name everywhere. And up front is also red, but that happened because, again, I had this idea. Of course, as you know, it started as a big red sofa on couches for people to overcome stage fright. And the first time I did that, I just had a post-it and it said, I am up front, and I stuck it in front of this, on front of my book, and took a picture of it. So there was no strategy, there was no brand. And I'm actually just right now going through a process with the designer to make Upfront less red, because it's not me, it's its own organization. And it's important that, I mean, you'll know, this is the tricky stuff of branding and graphic design, and like it needs its own identity. That's, of course, I'm still part of it, but it's not just solely me. So we're bringing in more kind of peaches and greys and creams and stuff. But yeah, it's now my wee boy's favourite colour, which I'm sure that'll bite me in the ass. And that by, you know, when he's 5 or something, he'll be like, I'm never wearing red again. And I have to keep saying, I don't want to put him in red every single day, but he does have a few like really amazing red. He's got a red boiler suit and a red, like big red woolly hat, and some really lovely red things.
I think it's great. And I think, you know, whilst we're talking about being upfront and being confident, you know, name another color that says, that spells that, you know, or kind of symbolizes that better, you know, regardless of whether it's happened to be sort of serendipitous or not. I think it really is it's clearly been, I think, a great theme and a weave that kind of brings it together, and I think it says a lot. And I think red is a strong color, and speaking from a stylist background, if you will, you know, that is the color at times where depending on where a client may fall, could be absolutely, this is what I need to give me the confidence or the empowerment, or it's sometimes the color that makes them feel like they're being too confident. Either way, it evokes a strong
reaction. Well, that's what I was thinking listening to you there. Like, I think a lot of people respond as you have, and like see the journey, and it feels powerful for you. I also have had a lot of feedback over the years, like it's too much, too loud, too in your face. It represents danger. You're trying to be sexy, like all this. Well, I don't like. Yes, I'm always trying to be sexy.
Yeah, no. Exactly. Always at the forefront of my life.
So actually, it's that thing of, I definitely have. That's another reason why I love doing this work. It's like I'm also learning this stuff and relearning it all the time. I'm not sitting here having it all figured out. Confidence is ebbs and flows in my life the same as it does in anybody's life. But do I have crisis of confidence over the color red? No, never, because I don't care what anybody else thinks. It's really that thing for me. It's like I love it. The people who I trust and respect also think it really fits with what I'm doing and what my goals are, and that's enough for me.
And we talked about it actually on our when you interviewed me last year, and you asked me sort of, what's the thing that kind of makes me feel confident, and I talked about, me putting on a red lip for me is sort of like that is when I like that, to me, can be the make or break of me going in and feeling like I've got this, and sometimes not, or at least being able to, even if I don't feel it internally, it presents for me an idea of confidence that I want to project, and almost fake it till I make it. And even funny enough, you said, used to wear look like red nail varnish. I was the same, I'm a red nails usually, red lipstick girl, because it brings that kind of like, it's a power color. And sometimes, even if you're not feeling that internally, you can sort of project it, and it does give that kind of feeling. So we're almost out of time, but I really wanted to ask you, because something with regards to our community specifically, but I know that a lot of our members who are working in and around the luxury industry, personal shopping industry, they work very long hours. They to the point where sort of burnout is almost quite normal, and in some ways I think of this weird kind of badge of honor, which is crazy, with little support, little direction. And I just thought, if you had to kind of give any tips, and that's not just specifically for personal shoppers or stylists, what have you, but I just because this is what we do here, but if you had any kind of quick tips that you would sort of say, this is a way to start feeling like you can have a bit more control or empowerment, is there anything that you would sort of impart just for the beginning? Because I think, it's something that I've really leaned into since kind of getting to know, what you do, and I'd love just to kind of get what your sort of top tips are.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes me so sad to hear that, because I know it's an industry that is dominated by women, and there's a huge amount of talent and creativity, and
yet a lot of the top is still very male dominated.
Of course. And I think that's the first thing to, that's a really important part of this conversation. It's like, who are you killing yourself for?
Yeah.
Who are you giving your time away from yourself, from the people you love, sacrificing your health, your mental health, physical health? Who are you doing all that for? I think when you are working in an industry that might not be a value, like where your values are aligned, it's really important to ask yourself those questions. Right. And I think the first thing that sprung to mind when you asked me that question is really, for the folks tuning in, like I want you to really accept and believe that every single thing is made up. So how we go to work, how we think about where we live, like how we vote, how we eat, how we shop, like all of it is made up. All of it has been made up by a human at some point somewhere. Usually those humans were mediocre white guys hundreds of years ago or more recently. And I think when you really, it's that thing of like, that will really piss you off and then it'll set you free.
Yeah.
Because once you realize that everything is made up, you realize that you're conforming to rules and norms that were not built to serve people like you. And that's going to be even more the case if you're a woman of color, if you're a gay woman, if you're a poor woman, if you're a trans woman, if you're queer, all these things. Most of these rules were not built with you in mind. So I think that can be very freeing. The second thing I think is really important, especially I know you shared with me before, there's a lot of women who are at the kind of start to mid of their career and they're joining the Once Club because they want to progress, level up, get promotions, maybe start their own thing. And I cannot stress this enough, which is really get your relationship with money sorted.
Right.
And that's going to be probably really quite painful, probably very uncomfortable, probably going to make you feel a bit sick. It's so important because there is a huge gender pay gap. There is a race pay gap. And a big part of the situation you describe of women being stuck, women feeling trapped, women staying in jobs that aren't aligned with their values because they don't know where else they would go, women doubting themselves, thinking this is the only type of job I deserve, all of these different things. Money is really at the core of that situation.
Right.
And I think the earlier you can really start to have those uncomfortable conversations with yourself. What are your money mindset beliefs? What do you believe about your potential to earn? What do you think about people who are very wealthy? What do you think, where's your pension at? What's your date? All of these different things. And the internet is full of amazing resources. And I often share a lot around money mindset in my newsletters and stuff. I've actually just bought a new book and I can't remember what the guy's called. His first name's Ramit, but there's a book called I Will Teach You How to Be Rich that seems to be kind of best book around. Really, it's basically a handbook step by step, and folks in their kind of early 20s, early 30s are going to get a huge amount out of that. If you're older as I am, it doesn't matter, it's still super useful. But definitely go there, because money is freedom. When you have money, it means you are never going to be dependent on one employer, one relationship, one industry, one social media tool, any of these things. It's going to give you freedom, and it's going to give you confidence to make the decision that's right for you, rather than the decision that's right for paying your mortgage or saving up so that you can have a baby one day, or whatever that might look like.
And I would hope that actually a lot of this is even more prevalent with people since COVID, because I think that was one of the things that really was, struck. And I remember my partner, I got made redundant a few years ago, and it was kind of like it felt like the end of the world at the time, because I'd been working since I was 14 and I had no idea. And he just said, here's the thing, even have the idea, the construct of being employed has been
not a thing. No job is a safe job.
Exactly. And at any given time, a company can fold, and you're actually less, so that financial independence is so important, or at least having an idea of what that means to you. I think you're completely right. I think it is at the root, because we're much more tuned into the idea of employment than we are financial independence. Which is a shame, really. And I think a lot of people experienced that sadly during COVID, about what that actually meant. And all of a sudden, which has been great, and I think in a lot of ways, because it has meant that a lot of people have really felt that this is the time, or this is the need to kind of strike out and kind of do something, or whether it's a side hustle, or whether it's going full time, or whatever, in their own, personal endeavors. It's been quite exciting and eye-opener for sure.
Yeah, I saw a great tweet yesterday that said 2021 is the year that we're celebrating our girlfriends quitting jobs rather than celebrating them getting jobs. And I thought that was I just thought that was great. And I think you're right. Like it is a shame. It's devastating, but it's also intentional. Like it's no accident that we live in a world where women don't talk about money, but men do. So really simple things like talk to each other about what you earn. Like I have girlfriends where regularly on a quarterly basis, we're having a conversation of what are you earning? What's your salary? Where's your pension at? How much your mortgage? How much was your house? We're having those conversations. You have to have them. And because that's what's going to change these norms. I've also got a massive bugbear of job adverts that don't have a salary band on them. Like that's not okay.
I completely agree. And you know, being freelance, the ownership is always put on you to decide. I've noticed that they always want to know, well, what do you want to be paid? I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. If you have a budget, I need to know what the budget. It's such a weird position. And I've learned in the last sort of couple of years where I went freelance, I've had to get more comfortable with pushing back and saying, well, what's your budget? Because I don't understand why I'm sort of being given a free for all, because you can be, you know, they know that you're setting yourself up or not. And I'm just like, it's bizarre to me that that's a thing, and you have to get really comfortable. And these are really, like you said, you are trained to feel uncomfortable in those situations, conditions. So you have to start just pushing against. And sometimes I'll be in my head, I'm like, you know, this is uncomfortable for you. Lead into it. And I'm always just kind of reminding myself that it is uncomfortable, but you need to do it regardless. Like, be uncomfortable. That's it. And like you said, it's less uncomfortable the next time and the time after that. So yeah, so it's good. Well, Lauren, this has been fantastic. One of my I was really looking forward to doing this talk with you, even
thank you for inviting me.
No, please. I think you've got so much to say, and I don't know if you still have spaces available for your next bond, but I would definitely implore everyone to check it out, and you know, if this is something that you feel that you could benefit from, for sure, and we can pass you details directly from the platform if you want, or you can check out you have 2 social platforms or one now?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram, which is Lauren Currie, and there you can sign up to my newsletters, and I share all the news and announcements about the bond. So the next bond, the 5th one, starts 13th of November. Tickets are not on sale yet, but there is a wait list that you can sign up to through my Instagram. And if you're curious, my DMs are always open. I'm really happy to chat with you about, is that a good fit for you? We have student discount, you're able to pay in installments, can chat to you about all that stuff and get you signed up. I would love to welcome some Once Club folks.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, I hope you have an amazing rest of the day. And
I'm actually going to get my 2nd vaccine now. I'm going to be double jabbed.
And very exciting for the rest of the day. Well, really enjoy, and hopefully I'll get to speak to you soon. Thank you.
Very best of luck with your rest of your pregnancy.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.